Hello, I'm Francisco Núñez, and I'm living the classical life.
Francisco, thank you so much for being here. We've been so excited to have you on the show, especially because of the energy that you bring to everything, especially classical music.
Thank you. Very excited to be here.
So I wanted to get right to it and say that you founded the Young People's Chorus, 1988. Why young people, and why bring classical music? Why bring music at all into the lives of young people?
It's funny, when I first started, I didn't know I would be starting with young people. In fact, I was going to be a classical pianist. And as a classical pianist, you always wait to grow up in order to be around the professionals. So I was playing piano my whole life, and I had some amazing teachers. But of course, with my family, I needed to do electrical engineering as a side step. So I did electrical engineering in college. And then eventually I switched over from Manhattan College, where I did electrical engineering, to NYU, and I became a performance major there. The year I was going to graduate, the last semester, a professor came up to me and said, just in case you don't make it big, why don't you go do a student teaching gig? I said, what? Yeah, go work with some young people. I said, no, I don't want to be in the same room as a young person and have a professional musician. He goes, just try it, see what happens, because you never know, you might end up teaching one day. There was no place for me to go, but they found this settlement house in the Lower East Side called Third Street Music School. And I went down there just to visit, and I met the teacher that was there. And I was impressed with what was going on. And I watched them teaching, and I said, fine, I'll do this for one semester. I figured I could get 6 credits from this. While I was there, I noticed something magical happening. Music was really making a difference in these children's lives. Then they had another program where they went to the Lower East Side and worked with a different group of children at that point. That was called the Miles Program, Music in the Lower East Side. So the after-school program at 3rd Street had these incredible young people coming, and then they had another group in the Lower East Side. And then I went and saw what was going on there. One day, the professor or the teacher that was at 3rd Street could not come in. He said, you take over. I said, well, I'm not ready. But I took over. And it was up to me to get them to sing and dance and learn to be inspired by music. And I noticed that the music he was doing was not really connecting with them just yet. He was doing country music, American folk song. Now, these children were Latin American. So I took the same song and I gave it a Latino beat on a pair of bongos that were there. And they all of a sudden just started dancing and going. And I was like, wow, that was pretty incredible. Something happened to them, and then at the very end of the class, one of them came up to me and says, Mr. Núñez, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. I want to be a musician. One time only, 10 minutes. And that got me thinking. And that was the spark that really energized that idea of maybe looking at this. And then at the same time, when I grew up here in New York City, I was playing the piano. And the piano was this instrument that worked in two ways. One, it created the sounds that made the audiences move, but it was also the tool that allowed me to go into a different kind of world. And that instrument, that bifurcation of music, was something that became very important because I was able to leave this area that I was in, of not very wealthy, not able to get everything I wanted, and go into this extraordinary, elaborate, gorgeous world where people were dressed to the nines and practicing and speaking slowly. And the biggest worry was the mordant or the trill, and not could you pay the rent. And when these children came in, they were beautiful, they were lovely, and I wanted to be their friend. They wouldn't speak to me right away because of my Spanish last name. But when I won the competition, they respected me.
That's astonishing.
So I said, maybe I can continue to do this and it'll open up this world. And it did. I continued to play the piano and I became friends with these young people. And I loved being their friend. So I put those two stories together. And I said, maybe when I graduate from college, as a side job, I'll create a not-for-profit organization that can bring young people from the two spectrums of society, those that don't have, put them together with those that have, and see what comes out of that. Making sure that music is the hook and making sure it's of the highest caliber, because that's where the respect comes in. And the respect doesn't just come in from one side, it comes in from both sides. Both spectrums will respect the other because of that musicality. Everything else is forgotten.
So that's absolutely remarkable. At the Miles program, you met the boy who, within the time frame of 10 minutes, decided that he wanted to become a musician. What do you think he was responding to in that moment?
Thinking back, I guess he's responding to maybe one of two things. One, what we all respond to when we hear something that's amazing in our lives. When you go hear a song, you're not even in the mood for it, or you hear a new classical piece of music, and it changes you, the interpretation, the way it sounds. I think that spark is something that we all call the magic, or the it, in music. Or maybe he was touched in such a way that he saw that he felt so good about himself for those few moments that he says, I want to continue this feeling in my life. And this music, this feeling with all my friends here, I enjoy this feeling. I want to have this in my life. And I think that's what happened to a lot of young people. They're always looking for a way to figure out who they're going to be. Now, it could be soccer, it could be, science, math. But the arts, I believe, is the one where children really gravitate to because it goes deep into the psyche, deep into the brain, the old brain, and that does something that we don't understand.
So Young People's Chorus, you've decided to integrate people, as you explained, from different socioeconomic backgrounds. Mm-hmm. Now, what I wanted to ask you is this word diversity. Some people, when they hear this word, they're a little bit on guard already. Mm-hmm. What is your concept behind diversity, and why did you decide to really focus on bringing together many different types of children?
It's interesting that you say that diversity is something that puts people on guard. And it's scary to say that diversity is something we have to be wary of. It's who we are, and we are diverse within ourselves. Everything we do is based on diversity. Without diversity, we cannot survive. Yet, we look to always be unified in some way. So the concept of multitasking is a diverse concept, right? Even that, people say, oh, I don't know how to multitask. I like to do one thing at a time. When I hear the word diversity, I hear natural. I hear must be. I come from a biracial family. I'm in a city that has many thousands of people, and millions actually, and they come from so many different kinds of backgrounds. And I enjoy the sound and the spirit of all those peoples coming together. And if you look at history, it is usually when people come together that something really wonderful happens. The reason I wanted to bring young people together, very diverse backgrounds, is because I knew for me it made a huge difference in my life. There was already diversity in my neighborhood, but there was a greater diversity out there. And for me, diversity is not one dimension, it's multidimensional. What does that mean? It's not just color, it's not just religion, it's not just socioeconomic, it's not just gender, it's not just thought. It is all of it. The ingredients of how you put it together, the concept of what you do in the kitchen to create that sound, to create that mixture of people. Diversity is multi-dimensional. So for me, diversity is everything.
So if we're looking at this age group, and I think of a typical high school and how kids tend to divide themselves into cliques, in your organization, how are the children responding to being around so many different types of people?
We're always going to divide into cliques. People call it tribes. People call it all different kinds of things. But the difference in our organization is you might go with a few friends that look like you, that you feel very comfortable with for a while, but you're also extremely open to go right away to the next group and just starts to blend. Blending is something that's very common. We don't think about it. It just happens. So if you see a couple of people together, great. You see the same people moving, great. We are very conscious as educators, that is what we want. And we create the atmosphere to allow for it to happen, whether it be the repertoire that we sing, the lyrics and the poetry that we talk about, the artists that come and work with us. If you surround the child with role models, musical role models, they will become that role model. And I think that is also what happened to that young boy. He saw a young man who, for some reason at that moment, he admired. I was only 22 years old. Not much to admire yet, if anyone, 22, until we grow up, I guess. But he said, well, that's something I want to do. I like the way he made me feel as a teacher. Maybe I want to be a teacher, I want to be a musician. So if we can bring that constantly to our young people here at Juilliard, they do the same thing. You have people doing master classes on a regular basis. But the institution has to choose the diversity of the master classes so that the students can learn. If we just go to one person all the time and have the same kind of person give that master class, we're now ingraining in those students, even in this school, only these kind of people know how to do great music. So look for that for the rest of your life. And then that will determine that all those other people can't do classical music. Living the life of a classical musician is living the life of every musician.
That's so fascinating. Now, I'm curious about how this is received on the audience side. What do you say to audience members who hear of your organization and they say, this is a program for minorities. I just want music, and that's what they're focusing on. That's not for me.
That's never been said. Not these days.
That's incredible.
However, back in 1997, we were in a competition in Prague with the YPC, and Jim Litton, who was one of the judges, he was the conductor of the American Boy Choir, also an organist here at St. Thomas. He was a judge, and he told me the night before the final decision that we won first place. He came to compliment me and to say congratulations. He was very happy that we won, and that a group like mine was going to win because we had a diverse group of children. The next morning, it was announced that we were tied for second. And we didn't know what that meant.
You were downgraded.
We were downgraded. And he told me after the fact, all the kids are now crying. He now told me that, well, what ended up happening was when we went around telling people who won, there was protests. That the children from my choir did not deserve to win because of who they were. 1997, 2019, 22 years ago, right? This year, we went to a competition in, it's called Cathalmu. It happens in Powell River, Canada. It's an international competition. About 27 countries competed. And there are many different competitions, like from classical music, historical music, folk music, etc. We won in 2 competitions. And then those winners of many of the different competitions will sing together. And then that one gets top prize. In the history of Cathalmu, which is I think 30-something years, no North American choir has ever won. Only Asian choirs and European choirs have won, including usually professional choirs. This past year, 2018, YPC was deemed Choir of the World, the first North American choir. And not only did the judges rule it unanimously, but it was also the audience's favorite. So in the last 22 years, something has happened where an audience is no longer seeing what was being said 22 years ago. They're now looking at us as musicians and not looking at us as minorities. And that is the whole idea. You have to scrape all those uglinesses away. Make sure that the art is very high and that you show the respect is there. And these children were very much respected. And I think that's what makes a difference. High art.
So 22 years, this trajectory that has been incredible in your life for its diversity, particularly, and it has seen so many different hats for you. Now, I'm so tickled by the story of how piano came into your life by way of your mother. I loved that story. What happened there?
Well, my mother, she was at this point trying to figure out what to do with two boys. And she's always loved music. She wanted to be a ballerina and a painter and a poet and a pianist and a guitarist. She wanted to do it all. She could not. She needed to work. In order to keep us off the streets, she went to the Salvation Army and bought a piano. And the piano came over and I started playing it. And for some reason, I got it. I heard it. I can play it. I made things up very quickly. And she became my first piano teacher. And now I knew it was the best thing possible. And then from there, we outgrew it. And I started to find other piano teachers. And my mother would go and say this to these amazing people: I will clean your house if you give my child a piano lesson. And they go, oh, yeah, let me listen to you. They thought they were kidding. And I would play. They go, oh, my gosh, of course, I'll be happy to work with your child. And that's what happened there. So music was a means for me to enter these buildings of these incredible people who took music and art at a very high level and took it very seriously. And that's how it all started.
But at what point did you realize that, okay, you responded to it, but that's a pretty big difference between that and saying, this is going to be my life?
For any young person, I think they don't know what they're going to do, but for some reason, I always knew music would be part of my life. My family fought me on it. As much as she wanted me to play the piano because it would give me the culture. Because for Latin Americans, music, an instrument, represents a whole different sector of society. And if you can play an instrument, whether it be the violin or the piano, you're educated. So if you come from extreme poverty, yet you can play this instrument, it shows that we're not as bad as you think we are. That's what it does to the psyche of us. So for her, she wanted me to become an artist because the artist is at the highest level culturally in society. But at the same time, she wanted me to be a doctor. So because that way I can make some money.
Right. Yes, something that we musicians don't always know about.
Exactly.
So, okay, then you had organ, and then you had conducting. Did you ever envision that you would have, and you're also a composer, of course, and quite a prolific one. Did you ever envision or decide to have that many roles as a musician?
I did not. I thought piano would be it. I started playing, doing chamber music very early on. There was one teacher in my life, besides that teacher at NYU, that helped me to figure out how to teach. There was another teacher in my life that really made a huge difference in figuring out my musical path. That was Seymour Bernstein, which I think was on the show.
We had Seymour Bernstein on the show, a remarkable human being as well.
Yes. So Seymour, when I was 19 years old, I went to a master class of his at the 92nd Street Y. And he and I hit it off right away. He could not believe what I could do. He says, "Well, take me on." I could not afford any piano lessons. I was still not making any money. So he gave me piano lessons for free for many years. And then I was always composing, so he also helped me in the compositional world. That allowed me to understand that music can be a part of your life in a very different way. And the way he taught was also something that was very inspirational for me. And I think the most important thing that he taught me that brings it all together is the simple concept of the phrase. The phrasing of Chopin is really what changed me and the way I hear everything I do today. He was able to do it in such a way for me that was very different. Now, I did a lot of Spanish music on Benith, Granados, and we were very adept at that. But when I went to the Romantic composers, that whole concept of the line and how the line works in music, that is the way I treat life right now. And I learned that through Seymour.
There was something that I was curious to ask you about, something that you said, that in your studies to become a pianist, the point was not to become a great pianist, but rather a great human being. Now, this is one of my favorite concepts because it was Franz Liszt who said, the musician's journey to become a great musician is to become a great human being. What was that for you?
Oh, I did not hear that. Music is a path. It's a calling. In religious circles, the calling is to give back. For me, this is what I was gifted to do. I don't think my gift is the musicianship. I think my gift is the teaching. And in music is the path that allows me to do that. Music is a path that allows me to connect with people. And I'm very lucky to be able to do that. It changes me. I learn every day. So in order for me to be a great musician, I must be able to connect greatly with people. Now, I don't perform as a solo musician anymore. I perform in ensembles, conducting them, playing with them. The only way for me to do that so successfully is to create a great team. And the team is the orchestra or the choir.
So my sense, correct me if I'm wrong, I get the sense that you're an extrovert, and this is an energy that serves you very well in everything that you do. But did you always feel like the role of an educator, and I have to mention for our viewers that you received the 2018 Musical America Educator of the Year Award, so congratulations. But did you feel like this was a role as educator and mentor of sorts? Did this come naturally to you?
I think I fell in love with the concept of teaching because of the inspiration that I was given by the teachers. And because it comes so easy compared to other things, like playing Bach, it doesn't come so easy.
No, not for me.
We fall in love with one, it comes easy, and two, we do it well. I am told that I can teach very well. I'm able to communicate something very quickly to people that do not understand it. I find ways of getting the information to them. So I became a teacher because of that. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I don't know if I'm a great teacher, but I do know that I have a great time teaching.
Now, how about the diversity of your organization in terms of what it aims to achieve? Mm-hmm. I know there's the college-bound program, mm-hmm. and then there's also a conducting apprenticeship program. Yeah. Tell me about how these ideas came about.
Young people are struggling, and many of them, in such a way that they want to work very hard, but they want to do many different things. So if you are going to a program like mine, and then all of a sudden you're failing outside, for example, you're failing a chemistry course, or you're failing algebra, or maybe you have to take a test somewhere and you can't make it. I don't want you to leave my chorus. So what we do at YPC is we'll wrap our arms around you and give you everything you need in order to not miss. All I need you to do is come, we will do the rest. For you to come, we have to work with your family, give you money, uniforms, and maybe even tutoring. So within our college-bound program, we are creating a room for you to succeed, a space for you to become wonderful. Little by little, those children inspire each other. And then they say, you know what? I don't want to stop now. I don't want to stop in 12th grade and just graduate high school. I want to have a higher education. I want to go to college. How do I get to college? So we now get involved with you to get to college. And till today, 100% of our graduates from YPC at the age of 18 are graduating high school on time. 100% are applying to university, 100% are getting into university, and nearly 90% are graduating from university.
Did that success surprise you?
You know what surprises me? The reaction it gets from people. Mm-hmm. Because it's supposed to happen. It happened for me, and it changed my life. I was very excited when I got my high school diploma, but I was even more excited when I got my college diploma. So why wouldn't a kid feel excited with that? So it's very exciting for us to do that. That's what the College Bond program does.
Who do you take to the choir? And do you turn anyone away?
When I first started the YPC, I took anybody at all, literally, and children with, voices that were just damaged, till the most incredible singer. I don't like to take children that come with headshots because I feel like they're coming for a different reason.
Right.
I want a normal, regular, not that they're not normal. Everybody, that's wonderful. Please strike that. I would like a child that is feeling comfortable and is able to just sing, and maybe doesn't have a lot. Because you cannot tell me that an 8-year-old is better than another 8-year-old when they've had very little training. So we take every child. Lately, it's been a bit more difficult to take more children because we don't have enough space. Our program is at 2,000 children in New York City alone, and we're growing nationally. So we're in different cities around the country at this point. And we're not sure how that growth is going to happen, so we're in the midst of this big strategic concept of how we're going to grow it.
Why expand nationally when 2,000 already sounds overwhelming?
Because people are asking us. People love the idea of going to these cities and saying, we have programs here that are wonderful, but we want to bring children from the different pockets of our neighborhoods and bring them together into one organization and have them be artistically excellent. Can you help us do that, Francisco? And that's what we're doing. We're going into these cities and we're helping people that are asking us to help them to create something like what we have here in New York City in their cities or their small towns.
Okay, so you've been doing this since 1988. What happens when you meet some of the early graduates of this program? What do you see?
I just met one yesterday.
Oh my goodness.
And she's married with 2 kids. And she has a fabulous job. She started her own company, and she's still afraid of me. It's really funny. So that whole teacher thing is still there. And we have a few whose children are in YPC. In fact, this year, one of my original choristers who actually went to Prague, she was in the YPC for 10 years. Her daughter now has been in the YPC for 10 years. So we're continuing to bring young people in and families in, and it's pretty awesome.
So you project this incredible ability to teach, to bring people together, to mobilize a community. Did you ever have any doubts that you could do this? I mean, that surely takes a lot of energy to pull this all together.
Have I ever had any doubts? Oh my. Yes, I'll be honest. And I have doubts more and more now. I think it's more difficult now even than when it was before. And I think it's the reinterpretation of something that exists. We need to continuously fall in love with our music. The children change. The concept stays the same, but the concept must be reinvented in such a way as our society grows, as our technology grows, as our children become much more aware of who they are, because they're allowed to become more aware of who they are. We need to start teaching differently. And finances are always very difficult to get. And the concept of staying excellent and doing something that's very unique, doing something that is different all the time. Where with classical music, you're going to reinterpret a piece that existed for many years. With what we're doing is we're doing so much new music. We're doing so many new ideas. We have to reinvent new ideas in order for the ensemble to grow. So for me, it's not the repertoire, it's the ensemble growth that makes me go, where are we going next? And that keeps me on edge, so therefore I work very hard. It also keeps me interested.
Have you noticed a difference in children of today? Not to put any words into your mouth, but the children of today are so technologically integrated, let's say. Do you feel like their interest in music or the role of music in their lives is different from when it was back in 1988?
Yes, I do feel a big change, in fact. I can say many different things, but the one that comes to my mind right away, I think today's child is more comfortable with adults. Where in the old days they would not speak up I think today they do speak up. And I think it's wonderful. So they're willing to tell me what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong so that we can move forward. So if I say to you, in the old days, I would say, that's terrible, that's wrong, let's do it again. You can't say that today. You have to say it in a different way. You have to say, well, that was an interesting way of looking at that. Can we come up with another way of getting the same procedure, whatever, the same phrasing? But I'm learning that through the children. I'm not taking course. And I think our young teachers are learning that. But if you've been teaching for 30 years, the way you speak to young people and the way they interpret what you say, that has changed. And some teachers are not willing to change with society's norms. I think it's very positive because we can't keep sticking to the way it was. Only the music will be there. The old music is there, we will reinterpret it. But because we're reinterpreting it, we're giving today's norms of those exact same pitches a very different way.
So on top of that, you're also a composer. Did this originally come about in order to write material for the choir?
It originally came about for me to write material for my piano students. So I'm 14 years old. I opened up my first piano studio because I was an organist. I was the youngest organist in the Archdiocese of New York. Bishop O'Connor, at that time he was bishop before he became a cardinal, came over to my church on 156th Street in Washington Heights to give me a big medal as the youngest choral conductor and organist in the entire Archdiocese. And I needed to write music for the church so we can sing on Sundays. And I needed to write music for my piano studio. So I was giving adult people piano lessons at the age of 14. I still remember it because I had little notepads of how much I was charging them and billing them and everything. It was very funny. I created piano pieces in order to teach different kinds of fingerings and different techniques that I was not finding. Because some of my children, some of them were very advanced, but the music, they didn't know how to read music, so I needed to write in such a way that I can teach them something. And I couldn't find the books that I needed, so I created the music myself.
Did it surprise you when you won the MacArthur?
Yes, that was something I could not expect. I received a phone call one morning, and I thought it was a prank call. And I was walking with a friend. He said, "Are you alone? We need to speak to you." I said, "Who is this?"
What?
And then I remember I'm in the lobby of my office building, so I went over and he spoke to me alone. I said, "Listen, we are from the MacArthur Foundation. We want to tell you that you've been awarded a MacArthur, the first choral conductor." I didn't know what that meant, really. And I said, what do I have to do in return? Do I go out to perform somewhere? Do I have to give a speech? He says, "No, nothing. Just give us your bank account. You'll be receiving checks every quarter for the next 5 years."
It sounds to me like all these musical activities wouldn't leave time for anything else in your life outside of music. Is that correct?
Oh, I do a lot. I I love playing with my children. I have a 11-year-old boy who's a pianist and a 6-year-old cellist girl. So as a family, we get together on a regular basis. But that actually has a lot to do with music as well, I guess. So you're right. I think everything I do is about music. My wife is also a musician. We sing all the time. We create all the time. So yes.
And finally, with everything that you've already done, where do you see yourself in moving forward? If there's any change that you envision, or going forward as you are with the fulfillment that you're already experiencing?
I have the goal of trying to get as many children as possible to come together from diverse backgrounds and learn from each other, using music as the instrument, whether voice being the first one that we use, but it could be any instrument, and letting that be the catalyst for them to come together. I will continue that struggle of figuring out how to get the different neighborhoods around our country and around the world to do this. I want to make a difference in a young person's life, remembering that the young person is going to grow up and become the professional adult the dentist, the doctor, the carpenter. And if they have music in their lives, they're going to be better dentists, better doctors, better carpenters. And that's what I want to do. I want to help society to create these incredible human beings.
Francisco, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your incredible insights and for everything that you do in making an impact in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. A real pleasure.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Awesome. It was fun.
Yes.